All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 6 of the LineTime Sports UFC Talk. This is LineTime Rick at LineTime Rick on X. As always, I'm with my good friend LineTime Hammer at LineTime Hammer on X. And just another reminder, make sure to follow LineTime Sports at LineTime Sports on X. This is a big week in combat sports. Big UFC card. We're going to get straight into the recap of last week, kind of try to fly through that. We got Edson Barboza. He won in a classic. He beat Sadiq Youssef. Big fight. It looked like Sadiq Youssef almost finished Barboza in the first round. Barboza survives and basically beat him the rest of the 4 rounds. That was a big pick. That was my pick, lock of the week, plus money. Fun fight, man. Edson Barboza, 37 years old. He looks like he's still in his prime.
Yeah, man, great pick on that one. That was an exciting fight for sure. Like you said, Yusuf had some success early on. Looked like he could possibly finish him, but yeah, Edson does what a veteran does, and he regrouped and fought well the rest of the way, and kind of just picked his shots and picked them apart the rest of the fight.
Yeah, and that was a good one, and basically everything else from there on, not everything, but for the most part, it was a lot of surprises to me at least. Viviana Ruhau, she came out and she beat Jennifer Maya in unanimous decision. And I'm not sure if you saw this yet, but Jennifer Maya, that was her last fight on her contract, and she's choosing to not re-sign with the UFC. So
Actually did not see that.
yeah, that's
She
pretty
already
interesting.
decided that.
Yeah, I just saw
Interesting.
that on X, and, I mean, I'm gonna assume it's gonna be something like maybe Bellator, maybe PFL. She's gonna go get a bag somewhere because she could definitely go fight for a belt in some other promotion. Like, I mean, she proved
Even
me wrong.
Even Invicta,
For
like
sure.
they love the women fighters over there. So yeah, I mean, that fight was close. I will say, like that was the second leg of my parlay that ended up full fading. But I will say it was a very close fight. I thought round one and three pretty much could have went either way. I thought my won the third round, and then the first round, it was pretty close. I feel like Aruja landed the harder shots, and then also Maya took her down at the end of the round, but Aruja finished the round on top, and I think ended up stealing that round. And I feel like the most decisive round there was round two, which Aruja definitely won. So that was a good look for her in the judges' eyes. But yeah, very close fight. Aruja impressed me, especially with her takedowns and her power shots. She looked good.
Yeah, she definitely impressed me too. I mean, I said on the pod last week that there was levels, and I didn't think that Aruha was quite on that level, but, I mean, she proved me wrong. She is on that level, very obviously. Next one, we got Jonathan Martinez. He beat, Adrian Yanez by leg kick KO. It's very
Right.
rare that we see that, but he was beating that leg up all night.
Dude, it was so weird. Like, I mean, like I said, there was gonna be in the phone booth, like they were gonna stand and trade, but like credit to Martinez for seeing that weakness in Yanez, and Yanez didn't adjust at all. He didn't really check the leg kicks. I don't know if it was just like he got hit with a couple so hard and so early that he really like just couldn't check after that. But it was surprising to me that Yanez didn't even really attempt to check the kicks after, you know, after having so much damage accumulate to that leg. So yeah, it was Martinez looked very good. Hats off to him, man. He looked great.
Yeah, Jonathan Martinez, man, he's stacking up some big wins. Then the next fight, Michel Pereira, he made quick work of Petrosky. I think it was around what 20, 30-second knockout. Hit him with one straight punch, and it was just pretty much over from there. It was a clear, I mean, not that I thought it was going to be, but it was a pretty clear disadvantage. I mean, it just looked like Pereira was ready to get in and get out real quick.
Yeah, I kind of could see. I didn't think it'd be 20 seconds. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I thought I was gonna knock him out in 20 seconds, but I did see a big advantage for Pereira on the feet there, and Petrosky never was able to get to his takedowns and be able to tire Pereira out. And yeah, he has that crazy power, man. He just put Petrosky out, and Petrosky's a tough dude. Like he doesn't usually get KO'd like that. So yeah, great win for Pereira against someone that was definitely surging in Petrosky.
Yeah, for sure. And then just a couple more fights, and I'm just going to fly through these, I think, so we can get into the good stuff. Christian Rodriguez had the UD over Cameron Simon.
Another
Darren
close fight.
Elkins. Yeah, that
Another
was a good
close fight.
fight.
Another
D-
close fight.
Darren Elkins with the rear naked against TJ Brown. That was a bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first was the first leg of my, best bet, and, I just gotta say, man, Darren Elkins is just a warrior, man. He has a game plan of taking you down, and he doesn't get away from it. He's very smart. He's a very smart fighter, smart veteran, and, yeah, like, TJ Brown was having success on the feet, but, like, and it was weird, like, sometimes he accepted position kinda on his back, but then there was times he got up and looked like he was starting to clip, Elkins, but Elkins just stayed with it, kept taking him down constantly, and I just think it just completely gassed TJ Brown, which was my worry, like, putting that in, that parlay, but, yeah, man, Elkins is just a veteran, and he's just has great cardio. It's
Yeah,
pretty much
Elkins
all
is
I can say
definitely one
about
of
that.
those. He's just it's hard to bet for him, hard to bet against him. It's any given Saturday for that guy. He can come out there and you don't know what you're going to see out of him. He could win any fight, it feels.
Yeah.
Terrence McKinney, he had a quick knockout win, 22nd knee knockout. He's another one of those guys, live or die by the sword. He's going to
Yeah,
come out swinging.
I was just gonna say we just gotta start taking under rounds in any Terrence McKinney fight ever because like he's gonna either finish you in the first round or get finished in the first round is pretty much the book on him. But yeah, man, he's an exciting fighter. Like if you like to see knockouts, you like to see high paced fights, like you love Terrence McKinney.
Yeah, for sure, man. And last one I just want to briefly talk about is Gutierrez. He got a Chris Gutierrez 30-27 over Alatang Healy.
Yep.
We kind of called that. We kind of
Yeah.
said it might be a regroup, a readjustment fight for Chris Gutierrez to get back. Uh, I mean, he won pretty soundly. He was another guy. He was going after that leg. You could
Yeah.
see the big hematoma pop up on that leg. It was pretty nasty. Uh, Easy 30-27. Seemed like an easy fight for Gutierrez.
He's a great leg kicker, man. Like that's what he does. He just takes apart your legs and then starts picking you apart after that when you can't really move as well. So yeah, great win for Gutierrez. It was a good card. I mean, there was a lot of finishes, and then the fights that weren't that didn't end in finishes were pretty competitive. So very
Yeah,
good
all in
card.
all, it was a pretty good weekend, but I mean, this is gonna lead right into this upcoming weekend, and man, am I excited. UFC 294 on deck. For those of you that don't know, the prelims start 10, 11 a.m., main card 2 p.m. So if you don't know, now you know, as Dana would say, get up early, watch those fights, be sure, be ready. And we're gonna jump straight into the main card. And on top of that, the main event, we're going to talk about Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Islam's coming in minus 270, Alexander plus 220. This is for the lightweight title. This was on 12 days' notice. Islam, his last fight was actually Volk. And Volk's last fight, he came out against Yair, defending his 145 strap. He knocked Yair out. He looked dominant in that fight like he does in so many other of his fights. This fight is, I mean, we know it was the last one was so close and such a big fight. This is just a guaranteed banger. It's a guaranteed big fight. What are your thoughts on this one, Hammer?
It's gonna be a good one. I we talked a little bit about it last week. I'm gonna be rooting for Volk very heavy here. I just kind of think the cards are stacked up against him here, and taking this on such short notice against such a game opponent in Islam. Volk talked about it this week on the MMA Hour, kind of how he's kind of just going in with that mindset of kill or be killed here because of the fact that he is taking it on short notice and he knows he can't. I mean, he's going to still have good cardio. I mean, he's a vet. He's a vet. He's very smart. Like he's going to have good cardio, but it's just different not having a full camp, especially against someone like Islam who has such a high pace, such a high pedigree in wrestling. So it's going to be a great fight. I think. Like I still think it's going to be a very close fight, but I do think Islam's probably going to edge it out. But I'm gonna be excited for that one.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that Volk has said this week in interviews is I forget what interview exactly it was, but somebody had said like, this might put a damper on your plans to fight Ilya Tapuria 3 weeks or 3 months out rather.
Yeah.
And he has every intention to still make that fight, and I think that's why we as fans love Alexander Volkanovski so much. Is he's always game, man. He's always there. He's always ready to go to war, short notice, whatever, doesn't matter. he's always ready to step in and provide for the fans. So, like you said, I'm going to be rooting big time for Volk. It's going to be a tough fight. It's already a tough fight
Yeah.
without the 12 days notice. So it's even tougher with the 12 days notice, like you said. I mean, we'll see. I have confidence that if anybody can get it done, it's going to be Volkanovski. Something in this fight is actually going to be my favorite pick of the weekend. We're going to get into that more later, and I think we'll just talk about the next fight, which there were some developments today. It's Khamzat Chimaev versus Kamaru Usman. Khamzat minus 320, Kamaru plus 235, which I never thought we would see a plus 235 for Kamaru Usman. But Kamaru, he was doing his open workout today with Justin Gaethje, and there's a video floating around where he throws him down, and apparently there was a pop in his knee, and you could see you see Gaethje say, "You're right," and he said, "I heard a pop." But Justin Gaethje has also come out and said that that's not what happened. It's not true. That the fight still should go on. I guess we'll see as the week goes on. I really hope we don't lose that fight. We already lost Paulo Costa due to his elbow, whatever his elbow was, an infection in his elbow, a staph infection. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I hope this fight happens. It's such a good fight. It's another about 12-day notice fight. Hamzat's coming off almost a 1-year layoff. He had a win up against Kevin Holland, which he made quick work of Kevin Holland. That was when he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz, and he just didn't make weight, was off by about 10 pounds. So they changed that last minute. And Kamaru's last fight, he's coming off a decision loss versus Leon. And before that was a knockout loss against Leon. But I mean, you can't doubt Kamaru Usman. This man is one of the most dominant fighters of the past 10 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked to see, plus what 235 hanging
Yeah.
on Usman. Yeah, it's pretty shocking to me. Just going back a little bit on that pop, like that is scary, man. Like just personally, like I've dealt with knee tears a bunch, and like when you hear a pop, it's a lot of times not good. Even if you can walk on it afterwards. Like I remember when I tore my LCL back in college, like I felt a pop and it like I could walk after. I tried to actually wrestle, and then my coach was like, "Just get on the bike." And then every time I was biking, it just started clicking, and I ended up having a completely torn LCL. So who knows? Like, even if he has a tear in his knee, if it's like the LCL or even like a MCL tear where it's not completely torn, like he should still be able to fight. But obviously, it's gonna put a little damper on his performance because that's just it's a hard injury to fight with. But yeah, if he can't fight, the fight's going to be scrapped unless they call Kevin Holland. Like no one else would take this fight on 3 days no 2 days notice. So um yeah, it's I am very tempted to just bet Usman for the fact that he's plus 235. I don't think he should be a plus 235 against anyone, but at the same time, he is going up in weight, and Kazmat has fought at 170 before, but like now he is a filled out 185 pounder. So it's going to be a tough fight for him for sure. But I'm seeing him at plus 235. It's pretty crazy to me, especially just stylistically. I do think he matches up pretty well against Kazmat. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably not gonna bet it. I'm probably just gonna watch it as a fan, but it is tempting to bet, Kamara here, in my
Yeah, it's
opinion.
definitely tempting getting him at that plus money, but, as we were saying, it's already a pretty tough fight to go up to 185 for his first time in the UFC. It's a tough opponent in Khamzat who's just relentless on the feet, on the ground, and if the knee injury is anything at all, that's just another disadvantage to coming in
Yep.
short notice. It's gonna be tough all around for Kamaru, but it's gonna be tough to not take him at plus 235.
Yeah, I think the knee injury is what's gonna scare me off because, I mean, Justin Gaethje can say whatever he wants, but we literally saw the video and saw him say he felt a pop. So, like, I mean, I'm
Worth noting that, whenever this fight got announced, was Usman was closer to, like, plus 210. You can get him now on DraftKings at plus 245, so it is
oh wow,
moving away from him, so for whatever that's
interesting.
worth.
Interesting. Yeah, so that is something to look with. Just like big money fight betters might be on Kazmat here, and that could be moving the line a little bit for sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
for a brief period today, they even took that fight off of at least FanDuel. It was whenever the news was coming about
yeah.
the knee injury had happened, they had stripped the fight completely.
Oh
Maybe
wow.
they would just readjust the odds because, like we're saying, it's already a tough fight for Kamaru, and any sort of injury, especially this close to the fight, it
Yeah.
just could completely readjust his game plan.
100%. hundred
The
percent.
only thing though to add to that would be if it was something particularly serious that Vegas knew about, I would imagine that that would go up even like way higher, right? I mean, if it was something that was super
Yeah.
limiting, right? Like that goes over plus 300, right?
That's why I think it's just probably normal line movement there with like big money bettors maybe might be moving that line, but the fact that they FanDuel took it off for a second, they probably did think there was potential of it getting scrapped, and then when it, I mean, I doubt it is now. The fact that it's back up and Justin's saying he's good to fight, like I do think he will fight. I'm just at the same time there probably is a injury there. Just we don't know how significant it is.
We're gonna head into this next fight, and it's light heavyweight Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Ankalaev's coming in minus 350, Walker plus 275. Magomed Ankalaev, the last time we saw him out was against Jan Blachowicz in that draw, which his post fight interview, he goes, I don't know if you guys will ever see me again in the UFC. He was not happy that it was
Yeah,
a
he was
draw.
so pissed about it. Like I get it. Like he probably won the fight, but at the same time, like
Yeah, it's
is
just
he new to the UFC with how judging
yeah,
works? Like it happens every card where there's a fight like that where people think someone won, and I mean, a lot of times they should have won, but it's judging with MMA, man. These judges aren't the greatest, and you can't really leave it in the hands of the judges, especially in a title fight like that.
yeah, and he, like you said, I thought that he probably won, but again, his leg was getting chewed up that whole time by Yon. It was a close fight. It really was, and the fact that he didn't see it that way is kind of. But here's what I will say is I do think that Magomed Ankalaev is probably the most talented light heavyweight on the roster. It's a division where ever since John Jones has left, it's been completely wide open. We've seen a lot of champion changes. We had Glover Teixeira, we had Yuri Prochazka, we've had Jamal Hill, and it
Yeah,
just keeps going back and back. And so this is a big fight in ways of where the belt will end. Johnny Walker, he's an interesting one too. He's coming off a decision win against Anthony Lionheart Smith, and he's had this resurgence, as you could say. He joined Conor McGregor's gym in Dublin, Ireland, and
great
Coach
blacks.
Kavanaugh. So and ever since then, he had a I think the first fight he joined that gym, he had a rough fight, and since then, I think he's won every fight. So
Yeah,
he's a wonky fighter. He's a unorthodox striker. He's gonna do the spins and the kicks, and he's gonna have a smile on his face the whole time. He's huge. He's 6'6". He's a monster, but Magomed Ankalaev has this sound fighting style where he doesn't like to stray from his game plan that I think
yeah.
fares not well for Johnny Walker.
Yeah, I was gonna say with you saying how talented Ankalaev is, I completely agree. I think the biggest knock I have with him is sometimes just his output, just like in that Blachowicz fight where he just doesn't do as much. Like he is very talented, but sometimes he kind of tries to sit on a lead and not go for the finish. So it should be interesting. I will say with Johnny Walker, like he is, like you said, he's wonky, he's very unorthodox, but like since he has moved to Straight Blast Gym, he is like Kavanaugh is a very smart coach. He's a very good coach, and I think he's reeled him in a little bit with that, like telling him like you're not going to be world champion fighting like this every time. Like he has become more conservative and is using his tools in a better way, in my opinion. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. I don't really think there's a play on this fight, to be honest. Like, I do think Ankalaev is gonna win, but like, I could see Johnny Walker hitting a crazy knockout too. So like, if you wanted to take him at what is it plus
275.
275, like yeah, there's some value there, I think maybe, but at the same time, I'm not gonna get involved. I don't think.
Yeah, and I think that maybe there might be a play on the over rounds. I don't know what they're going to set it at. I don't know what the odds are going to look at. I think if Ankalaev, who I do think is going to win, I think if he wins, it could be by decision, but he could get him on the ground and submit him because Johnny Walker's also susceptible to once he's on the ground, he tries
Giving
to
up the
push.
back. Yep.
Exactly.
Giving up the back, just trying and anything he can to get back to his feet. And sometimes that's not the smartest game plan, especially against someone like Ankalaev who has such great submissions.
Yeah, and honestly, we might Irish Johnny Walker could be a new mythical fighter.
He could be.
We have to look into this possibility, and
Yeah.
I mean, like,
If he wins this fight, he is.
yes, it's a new mythical fighter, and
For sure.
so this is probably one that I'll sit out and watch it as a fan. It's an interesting fight. I've said I think Uncle Ive's the most skilled fighter in that division, but Johnny Walker, he has all the makings to be a champion. He's a beast. He has power, and like you said, he's reeled it back a little bit since changing gyms. We saw that in the Anthony Smith fight. He was more calculated. He was ready to go all 15 minutes and just kind of
Yeah.
poured on Anthony Smith and outpace him and output him. And that's exactly what he did.
Yep. I agree.
Next fight, this is another interesting one. It's Ikram Aliskerov versus Warley Alves. Ikram minus 600, Warley plus 430. Ikram's coming off a KO win against Phil Hawes. Alves coming off a decision loss against Nicholas Dalby. Ikram, he's had a couple fights canceled recently. We know the Paulo Costa one. He had another one in there, and I'm drawing a blank on who that one was against, but it seems like people are almost avoiding Ikram. He's a classic Russian wrestling fighter.
Yep.
He you know what he wants to do, and it's really hard to stop him from doing what he wants. So Warley Alves, he's all right. He's nothing groundbreaking, and I don't think that he's the kind of fighter that's going to be able to stop Ikram from getting the fight to the ground and pounding or throwing in submissions. Once Ikram gets these people to the ground, it's almost impossible to get off of it and get separation. Once he has you down on the ground, it's super hard to get separation and get back to your feet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty telling for someone that has one actual win in the UFC. Like, yeah, he has a win in the Contender Series, and then his first fight in the UFC was against Phil Hawes, and he knocked him out in the first round. I think it's pretty telling that he's a minus 600 against someone like Warley Alves, who's a seasoned veteran, who I think is a pretty solid fighter. But yeah, I mean, if I just think like anytime you're getting like a plus 400 like this, who with a solid fighter, like I think it's worth taking a shot if you're feeling it. I'm not gonna probably bet it, but at the same time, like plus 430 here is pretty crazy to me, but it's probably for good reason.
Yeah, and like it's once you're seeing a minus 600, I don't think that this is a parlay piece.
No,
I think that it's
not at all.
something that if you're really in love with Ikram,
Gotta
watch it
take
and be
them,
excited when he wins.
or you,
You don't need
or
to put
you,
your money.
or even just take him by first round finish or something,
Yeah,
because like that's probably what's gonna happen if you do want to. I wonder what that is. Do they have that as? I don't even know if they have those odds up yet, but like being a minus 600, him to win in the first round is probably like still like minus like 190,
yeah.
maybe minus
So
200, 2 to
and if
1.
you really love that, then go ahead. It's something that I'm probably gonna stay away from completely. It's one that I'll just watch, and as Ikram starts to stack a couple of wins, we'll start to see those odds go down and the competition level go up. So it's just or Warley Alves, like you said, throw a dart on Warley because
Yeah,
he's a seasoned vet. He has a lot of fights under his belt. Uh, he could surprise everyone, and he can come out and he could beat Ikram.
for sure. It's should be an
For
interesting fight there.
for Ikram to win by KO in round one, this is on DraftKings plus 175. To win by submission in round one plus 240.
Okay. Yeah, I was more talking about just like if you're just gonna bet him to win in the first round. I wonder what those odds are, but yeah, I feel like he could probably get it done in the first round. Like I think that's kind of what his game plan is here, trying to make a big splash here by getting a quick win over a seasoned veteran. But yeah, it doesn't entice me too much to bet either side here, to be honest. I think they kind of just made Ikram unbettable here at minus 600.
Yeah, yeah. And this next fight, this one intrigues me. It's Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Gafurov. Nurmagomedov minus 220, Gafurov plus 180. This is a weird fight. I thought it would be a little bit closer to even odds. Saeed's coming off a decision loss to Jonathan Martinez, who we obviously saw last weekend, and
Mhm.
Muin is coming off of a decision L to John Castaneda, and it's only his second UFC fight. This is just it's one of those fights where and Saeed, he's not your typical Russian wrestling fighter. He likes to fight you. He likes to
Yeah.
stand and fight. And we saw that against and this is a name that I should have. It was that kid, that other Russian that got cut after he was beaten on Saeed the whole fight and he lost. He got stuck in a guillotine and he got choked out. And
Okay.
Saeed came
Yeah.
back from the depths of hell. And I think we were on this other kid and we were winning the first two rounds and then
Yeah.
he got cut. And
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
yeah,
It's, Terrence
Saeed
McKinney.
Yakub, Saeed Yakub.
Yeah, Terrence McKinney's training part. Yeah, I was like,
Yes.
yeah, that was a painful loss, man. He was destroying Saeed the first 2 rounds and then kinda just
Destroying
got
him.
got
So
um,
so it's
yeah,
interesting to see Saeed at a minus 220, right?
yeah, it is. I don't think Saeed's that great, to be honest. He has the name Nurmagomedov. I can't even say it. I hate trying to pronounce their names, but, yeah, he has, Khabib's last name. So, the fact that like he has that last name, he's already going to get respect from the books. That's kind of how it works. I don't think he's that great of a fighter. He does have endurance. He does stay in it till the last minute. Like that's literally what happened against Jokic. But yeah, I just don't think he's that great. But at the same time, I really haven't watched this other kid at all. And I have watched Castaneda, and I don't think he's that great either. So I can see why they are putting um uh Saeed at minus 220 here. Yeah, this card in general isn't the best to bet in my opinion. I feel like there's a lot of fights that could go either way. I would not be taking Saeed here at minus 220 though. If I were even putting him in a parlay, I feel like that would be a parlay buster. I feel like people will see Saeed's last name and just throw him in a parlay at minus 220. Is my opinion on it. And
Yeah, I think if Muin can get this fight to the ground in each of the 3 rounds, if it goes that long, I think that he has a path to victory. Because, like I said, he's just for being under Magomedov, he's not a great wrestler. He's just not, and like I said, against Saeed Yakub, he caught him in a guillotine in the 3rd round, and it was more to the fault of Saeed Yakub than it was to the strength of Saeed.
exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. It was just Jakob pretty much just making a stupid mistakes, thinking he's invincible because he dominated him in the first 2 rounds, in my opinion. Like he dominated him on the feet and he dominated him taking him down. And then he got caught in a guillotine or armbar or something. I forget how it finished. But yeah, I just don't think this is one you should bet, and I think this is one you especially should not bet. Saeed there at a 2 to 1. I don't think that's very deserving. I don't think he's very deserving of those odds, in my
Yeah, and
opinion.
this is one of the few fights that survived. This was supposed to be the Brazil versus Russia card, and this is one of the few Brazil versus Russia fights that truly survived, especially on the main card.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe home field advantage. I mean, I know that's a kind of a weird thing to have in martial arts, but we've seen these fights in
It's
the
the thing though,
UAE.
man.
The crowd is, I mean, the crowd goes nuts for these guys. They're
Yeah,
very, very supportive.
it's a real thing, especially in a place like Abu Dhabi or like England or London. Like their home fans show up to support their guys. So yeah, it should be interesting there. No bet for me.
Yeah, no bet for me as well. And then getting into the prelims, I love this first prelim, the feature prelim. It's Tim Elliott versus Muhammad Makhachev. Tim Elliott plus 350, Makhachev minus 450. Tim Elliott's coming off a decision win versus Hector Altamirano, and Makhachev's coming off of a decision win versus Jafil Filo. And Muhammad Makhachev, 10-0, coming in, putting his undefeated record to the test. And his last fight, he was wrestling heavy. He looked good, but
I almost
the
got
output
subbed.
kind of got to him, and he almost got
Yeah,
subbed in that 3rd
yeah.
round. He was in
It,
this
wa-
knee bar. It was nasty.
Nasty, bro. Like I do not know how he didn't tear his ACL or something, bro. That was bad. Like he obviously was hurt after it. Like you could see him limping, but like he didn't get surgery or anything. Like he might have had like a slight tear where he didn't need surgery or whatever. But yeah, that was an insane knee bar. But I mean, that just shows the toughness of Mikhaev. And like you referenced him being 10-0. And I just think it's pretty crazy. If you look at his amateur fights, he was like 22-0 amateur. And like I know sometimes like that can be skewed with like level of competition, man, but like he has fought a lot of fights. Like he's fought 30 sometimes, already in his career. Like granted, yeah, 20 of those were amateur or whatever, but like it's pretty impressive.
And he's young.
Yeah,
If I'm
he's
not
very
wrong, I think he's 22, 23 years old, so he's got all this room for improvement as he's already had all this experience.
yeah.
That's a vicious storm brewing. The odds, I'm not sure if I referenced them yet. Makhachev minus 450, Elliott plus 350. It's another one of those ones where I wanna take Makhachev. I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to put him in a parlay, though, because it's like the Darren Elkins from last week where Tim Elliott is one of those guys where he can show up and he could just beat you on output. He can beat you on
Awkwardness.
grittiness, awkwardness.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen a million times. It's one where Muhammad Makhachev should win. It's home field, like I said. But Tim Elliott, he doesn't quit, and he's always in these fights. Sometimes he loses. It's just that's how it works. But sometimes, he shows up, and we see the Tim Elliott that he can beat anybody on the roster, not on
Yeah,
the
I'm not
roster in his weight class. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty tempted, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a huge Makhachev fan, don't get me wrong, like, I've been a big fan of this kid ever since he's gotten the UFC, but I think those odds are pretty crazy, man. Like, yeah, you look at Tim Elliott's record, he's 19 and 12 and 1, but he's lost to some really good fighters, and then you look in his, last 4 fights, or his last 5 fights, he is 4 and 1 against had some good wins in there too. Um, yeah, I probably think Makhachev gets it done, but, like, dude, Elliot could really give him some problems with his awkwardness, and he's a very awkward wrestler too. Like, I don't think Makhachev I think Makhachev definitely will have a little bit of an advantage on the feet, but like wrestling wise, like he should have an advantage on paper. But that tricky wrestling from Elliott could definitely give him problems, man. And then just that gas tank. He has an insane gas tank where you referenced Aaron Elkins, very similar, man. Like he has a game plan, he sticks to it. He's not gonna he's not really a knockout fighter, but he lands good shots on the feet. Like he kind of has like that Dominic Cruz movement where it's just he's so hard to track and he mixes in his takedowns well. Like to be honest, like I would not hate a bet on Elliott here. I haven't decided if I'm going to bet him a little bit because I am a Makhachev fan, but I just think those odds are pretty crazy.
yeah, and it's another one where he has some, outside motivation, Tim Elliott. I mean, we all know about Gina Mazzani and, his training partner, I forget his
Kevin
name,
Croom.
Kevin
Kevin Croom.
Kroom.
Did
So
you see Kevin did you see Tim Elliott sponsoring the guy that's fighting Kevin Croom in bare knuckle? His next
sounds
fight?
about right. So that's what I'm saying, man. Sometimes, these guys, their personal lives, it stems some more motivation for them, and
For
I mean,
sure.
that's definitely not a fun thing to be going through, and we saw Tim Elliott in his last fight. He got emotional over it after his win. So maybe it's exactly the push that he needed to beat an up and coming guy like Muhammad Makhachev because this would be a huge win for Tim Elliott. This would definitely get a number next to his name. This would
For sure.
set him up for some big fights down the line.
For sure. I mean, Makhayev's someone that the UFC's pushing for sure. He's talked about how he wanted to be the youngest champion. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But he's could be a champion very soon. And yeah, like you said, he's 22 years old. He's got great tools. I just think experience wise, this could be a very tough fight for him. Like he just has not fought the same level of opponents that Tim Elliott's fought. Like, I mean, Tim Elliott went to decision with Demetrius Johnson, and he had success in that fight. There was times that it wasn't looking like it was just going to be a walkthrough for Demetrius, like everyone thought it was going to be. So I mean, it could very well be a close fight. So that's why I'm thinking plus what 3 something on Elliott is
350.
plus 350 is pretty insane in my opinion.
Yeah, it's another one of those seasoned vets versus up and coming where it's if you really love the up and coming rising prospect, then maybe you can throw him in a parlay. I wouldn't. I think that the better
I
bet is Tim Elliott straight.
Honestly, though, like, I think we'll take a break right after this, but I also think, you could get, plus money here for it to go the distance, and I think that could very well happen. Like, even if Makhachev shows, more skill than Elliott and stuff, like, I still think Elliott's gonna stay in there, and I think it's gonna go like, I don't think Elliott's gonna finish him. Like, I think it's gotta be Makhachev that finishes him, but I just think he's gonna have a tough time, so I think obviously we don't have the odds here because they haven't opened for that yet, but I think that's a good bet, in my opinion. If you're gonna bet this fight, I think that's a very good bet for it to go the distance.
Yeah, yep, I like that as well. And like you said, I think we're gonna go to a quick break here, and then we're gonna round out some of the prelims and go over our favorite picks. All right, and hopping into our next prelim here, we got Muhammad Yahya, who's making his UFC debut, and he's fighting Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek's coming in -165, Yahya +140. Uh, like I said, Yahya, he hasn't fought yet in the UFC. He was a champion in UAE, so it's another case of hometown. Um, and Trevor Peek, man, he is an interesting character. He's coming off his first career loss. He's 8-1. It was a decision loss against Chepe Mariscal. Um, the thing about Trevor Peek is he's got an iron chin and he's not
Yeah.
afraid to walk you down. And, as we saw, sometimes that can go against your favor. But I think in this fight specifically, Muhammad Yahya, he's a kickboxer. I think that this could be a good thing for Trevor Peek. I don't think that he's going to get knocked out, and I think that he has some big power too. I think I like this for Trevor Peek. -165, decent enough odds. I do side with Trevor Peek here.
It's interesting because, like you said, dude, Trevor Peek is just so aggressive, dude. Like, he throws some crazy strikes and he does not give a fuck, dude. He just stands in there and he's ready to die in there. Like, there's not many fighters that are willing to say that, but like, he legitimately does not give a fuck about his well being and he is going for a bonus every time he fights. The first time I watched him fight, actually, it was a local card around here where he fought
Comma.
Kama Worthy. So yeah, that was, I think, Kama's one of Kama's first fights after getting cut, and then I think he might have actually retired after that fight. But yeah, he impressed me against Kama in that fight. Um, yeah, dude, Trevor Peek is just he's game. So it's tough because like even when his skill isn't there, like he might have a skill deficiency in this fight, but he is just so wild and he's so hard to knock out. So yeah, I mean, I personally will not be betting this fight because I kind of hate betting on fighters that fight like Peak just because they aren't the smartest. They don't have the best fight IQ, but like they're really fun to watch. Um, I think it is kind of telling though. He is a -165 here, coming off a loss. Even though this guy's making his UFC debut, he is 5-0 in his last five. So he's definitely coming in there with momentum. So might be a little bit telling that Peak is -165 here. So I just think this is one you're gonna watch as a fan and be happy you did, in my
Yeah, to your
opinion.
point, it's hard to bet on guys with Trevor Peek's fight style, guys that kind of throw caution to the wind. But again, he does. He has an iron chin, man. I've seen him eat some shots that most people would just immediately go out from. So, and yeah, his fight style is kickboxer. He's going to want to fight with you. He's not going to take it to the ground. So I
Yep.
do think that that kind of helps out Trevor Peek. He, like I said, he has some power. That should be a fun fight to watch. And then going into the last prelim that I wanted us to talk about here, it's Javid Basharat versus Victor Henry. Basharat's a -600, Henry +430. Basharat's 14-0. He's putting his O up to the line here. He's coming off the decision win against Mateus Mendoka, and Henry's coming off a decision win against Tony Gravely. I think that there's going to be value here on Henry. It's just I don't think that Basharat's worth a parlay piece at -600. You're obviously not going to take him straight at -600. It's an interesting fight. Victor Henry is he's a good striker. He's got wild strikes. He's going to throw kicks from distance and he's going to throw knees and elbows up close. Javid Basharat, he's good on the ground and he's good standing.
Yeah.
He's pretty well rounded. So I don't know if I favor him as much as the -600 does, but I do probably side for Basharat.
Yeah, I mean, he's -600. He's 14-0, but Victor Henry's a good fighter, man. 23-6. He has a ton of experience, and just watching him, he impresses me. He has a really good gas tank. He has very solid striking. He's pretty well rounded too. Like he has good takedown defense. Like he's not going to be really looking to take you down that much, but like if you're trying to take him down, he has very solid takedown defense in my opinion. So should be interesting. Like he has, and this other thing with Bosharat is like he just the level of competition, man. Like yeah, he's 3-0 in the UFC, but Trevin Jones, Tony Gravely, and Mendoka, who just looked horrible in his last fighter, his 3 wins. So I don't know, man. I kind of like the value on Henry here. I don't know if I'm going to play him, but he's very tempting at plus 400. I definitely wouldn't be betting Basharat in any way. Even him, like even if you can get him by finish or whatever, like I really just don't think it's worth it. I think this could be one where he loses his 0 for sure, but I'm probably not gonna bet it, but if I were, I'm gonna bet Henry for the value. I just think that is crazy that he's plus 400 here.
Yeah, and I was
Books
pretty
don't really
surprised to see
respect
this is
him
the line.
usually. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I think the books just really don't respect him, and I think he's a very solid fighter, man. Like 23-6 is a very respectable MMA record. And then you look at his last fight, like he beat Tony Gravely, that's a common opponent of both of them. You know, they both have wins over Tony Gravely, and then he lost a Sun Sal who's been a veteran in the game, top of that division for a while now. But before that, he has wins over Ronnie Barcelos and then Albert Morales. So like he's beaten some very respectable opponents in the UFC. So I mean, if you're gonna bet it, I'd bet Henry here, in my opinion. But don't be too shocked when he loses. He's a plus 400. But at the same time, I think this is a dart throw that you won't be mad about. Like I think he's gonna be competitive in the fight either way, win or
yeah,
lose.
this is one of those ones when I was doing my research, I was just surprised to see that this is where the line was set at. I thought that they're a little bit closer in skill. And like you referenced, Victor Henry's 23-6, I
Yeah.
think, and Javid Basharat again 14-0, undefeated. And it's the book sometimes they get lost in that undefeated record.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
which I don't think that that's a smart way to go about things. Everybody was undefeated at one point until they lost. And
Yep,
like you said, Victor Henry's a guy that could definitely take that O away.
for
Um,
sure.
it's an interesting fight. I don't know if I'll touch it. Again, don't be surprised when a plus 430 loses, right?
Yeah.
The other guy's minus 600. I mean, again, undefeated has something to play in it, but Javid Basharat, he's a good fighter, man. He's
Yeah,
good everywhere.
he's
He's every
definitely
time he
solid,
fights, yeah, you see why he could be at a minus 600. But
I
I think that's
agree.
going to do it for our little recaps, and we're going to get into our favorite picks here. My favorite pick this weekend is going to be Islam and Volk to go the distance at minus 120. We saw that happen in their first fight, and I mean these two fighters. It's just the perfect storm where we've seen Volk in some bad situations before, and he just seems to survive every single bad situation he gets in. And
Yep.
it's rare to see Islam. I mean, we saw Islam get knocked out earlier on in his UFC career, and outside of that, I mean, we saw him get dropped against Volk, but that's the thing is once you go and you try to ground and pound or whatever, he'll grab your ankle, he'll get you in a guard. It's one of those things where it's really hard for me to see either one of these fighters winning by a finish. I think minus 120 is pretty fair odds to get. I was thinking about going over, and the over rounds are set at 4.5 at minus 130. So at that point, I think you just kind of nut up, go the distance. Um,
Yeah,
Another fun play.
I don't think it ends with 2 minutes left in
Yeah,
the 5th round, like, or whatever, 1 minute left in the 5th round, like and like you're saying, Volk's been in bad situations, dude. He was literally in the deepest submission I've ever seen, or one of them against Brian Ortega. Like, there literally looked like there was no way out for him. He said he literally started seeing like lights, like he thought he was going out, and then he just somehow, but and then there's another thing, dude, he doesn't have a neck. Like, bro, he doesn't have a neck. So, like, when Islam's going for those neck submissions, like, it's so hard to sink a submission in on Volk, man. Like, he is just so smart. I mean, Craig Jones is his submission coach, and he is just he's a great submission artist. Like, and Volk definitely has learned a lot from him about just being defensive there. Like, yeah, Volk isn't the biggest submission guy, but defensively, man, he is so good. And I really don't see Islam putting him out on the feet. Yes, Islam had some success in the first fight standing up. Like I think he might have knocked him down, at least rocked him. But at the same time, I don't see Volk going out. The only thing that does scare me a little bit is the 12 days notice, whatever. But I just don't think his conditioning is going to be that much of a factor. If anything, I think it's just he could go for a finish thinking he's not going to win a decision with that gas, like with, taking on 12 days notice. So he could make a mistake in that way. But even if he does, I think he'll get himself out of it like he always does. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I was gonna say another fun play might be, and again, this is probably me speaking as a Volk fan, but something I might play and not overly play is Volk to win by decision. I'm sure you're gonna get plus money on that because Volk is plus what 220.
Damn, yeah,
So
you'll get real good. I mean, I feel like they won't put it up that much more, like because I feel like they think if he does win, it most likely will be a decision. But you're at least gonna probably get plus 300 there. I don't know if you have those odds, Oscar, for Volk to win by
Yeah,
decision.
Volk to win by decision on DraftKings is plus 500.
Wow. Okay, so
yeah, so
yeah,
that's
I mean
definitely
that's
something. I mean, if you don't see the value there, then I don't know what to tell you.
yes, they're
Maybe watch a different
25 to
sport.
win. Yeah, 25 to win 100 on there, man. Like, I mean that's a good bet in my opinion.
Yeah, so I definitely like the distance. That's definitely going to be my favorite pick. It's going to spice up the main event a little more. I like to see if there's something that is possible to take during these main events because I mean, obviously that's what the books want you to play is these main events too. I mean, so they're going to get these lines exactly where I think they should be at. They're going to do their research on them. So I like the minus 120 to go the distance. I like to sprinkle on Volk to win by that decision. It's going to be a fun fight.
For sure. Going into my favorite pick, I am gonna also take a shot at a pretty sizable underdog here. Abu Azatar, Otman Azatar's brother. He's 14-3-1. I think he's a good fighter. He's pretty solid everywhere. He's kind of like his brother. He has knockout power. That's kind of the story on him. But at the same time, man, it's more about his opponent. I do not think his opponent's UFC caliber, and I do like his I do like Cedric Dumas. Like I think he is an exciting fighter, and I think he could get there one day. But at the same time, man, like if you look at him, he had a win on the Contender Series, and then after that, man, he lost to um, Josh Fremd in his first UFC fight and kind of just got dominated. And like Josh Fremd's a Pittsburgh guy, like we love Josh Fremd, but I don't think Josh Fremd's that highly talented either. Like I love the guy a lot. Like he wrestled around here, wrestled at Connellsville, but at the same time, man, it's more about his opponent, in my opinion. I do not think Dumas should be a minus 230 against anybody in the UFC, in my opinion. I think this is a very solid bet on Azatar. I think he could get knocked out in the first round, or maybe even submitted. Like I know Dumas got like a standing guillotine in his Contender Series fight, which like surprised me. I didn't know he even had that in his repertoire. But yeah, I just think Azatar here, man, 14-3-1, very solid fighter. Like he has a loss in his last fight against Marc Andre Baralt, but Baralt's a tough fighter, man. Like, and before that, man, he was riding like an 8 fight win streak. Granted, yeah, it wasn't. They weren't in the UFC. Only one of those fights was in the UFC, but I just do not think Dumas is UFC caliber yet. And I saw it on FanDuel at plus 170, but I was just informed that you can even get plus 190 on DraftKings right now. So almost 2-1 underdog, man. I just think there's so much value there, and I think he can make it look easy. To be honest, like that's the way am thinking about this fight. And the main thing, man, with these picks that we're putting out, we're trying to get plus money or like minus 120. Like at the worst. Like that's how you make money betting UFC, man. Like you are making money betting really any sport. Like you have to look for value. Like we're 5-2 right now, and every pick we've had has been plus money except Tracy Cortez at minus 118. So I mean, if you're betting all these with a unit, you're up what, 3 units at least or whatever. So like 2 point whatever units. So I think it's a good bet, man. I think he could make this look easy. I'm gonna take a stab at Avatar here.
Yeah, I think that this is a really good value bet. I was pretty surprised to see Cedric Dumas being the favorite in general. Like,
Yeah, like
even
he
as
had a lot of
if it was
hype after the
120.
Contender Series, but I mean, he got finished. Like he was a huge favorite against Josh Fremd, and I didn't bet Fremd strictly because I just was rooting for him since he was a Pittsburgh guy, and I like him a lot. So yeah, I just like him being a -230 against anyone in the UFC is pretty crazy to me. I do not think he's UFC caliber yet. So that's gonna be my favorite bet on this card.
Yeah, I think he's decent, but like I think the best thing about him is he looks a lot like 21 Savage.
He does, bro. He does. He has that look to him. But
He does. So I don't
yeah.
think that that's going to fare well in a fight, but we'll see. Maybe it will.
Yeah, we will.
And I think that's going to do it for our recap of 294. But there's a couple things more we'd like to talk about here on this episode. One of them being the USADA situation. Last time on our last podcast, it had just broke that USADA and the UFC were going to part ways at the end of this year. And it's gotten a little bit hairy since then,
Yeah. So
especially with the Connor stuff.
so I after USADA put out that statement, Hunter Campbell and Jeff Nowitzki held a press conference about it. And you never see those two talk to the media. Like never. They don't like to do it. And they had to because pretty much, dude, after USADA put out that statement, just kind of how we were saying, we were nervous about the trajectory of the sport with steroids and stuff. And Hunter Campbell, who's the UFC's lawyer, said about 50% of the roster, whether it was fighters or managers, reached out to him and was like, "Hey, man, like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, what's like?" So, pretty much what I got from that press conference with Hunter Campbell, I think everyone should go watch it. Like, they'll explain it a lot better. But this was happening months ago with the split. Like Hunter Campbell and Jeff Nowitzki pretty much have found a way, working with USADA for how many years they've worked with them, what, 8 7 8 years at this point, um, to be able to put that gold standard by themselves. They don't need USADA. So USADA hires a lot of private contractors to do it, like whether it's scientists or whatever, to ensure all this steroid stuff's out of the picture. But pretty much what I got from it is Hunter Campbell and Jeff Nowitzki are able to hire all the same scientists, pretty much do everything that USADA was able to do, but um they don't have to pay USADA all this money. Like they pay them millions of dollars a year to put together that program. And dude, Hunter Campbell like talked about the call with Travis Tigert, who's the head of USADA, and he said he pretty much had like a mental breakdown during their phone call and was just freaking out because they were gonna leave like part ways. And pretty much like what Travis kept saying in the phone call from what Hunter said is that like he just kept referencing how much the UFC makes a year. And he's like, that doesn't matter. Like, so like Travis and USADA wanted a raise from the UFC, in terms of what they provide. And they kept referencing how much the UFC makes. Like, and Hunter was like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't give a fuck how much we make. Like, our contract's what it is. This is what we're going to pay you. Like, that should have nothing to do with how much we're paying you and all that stuff. And then also with it, I would just speak to, he kind of just pretty much said everything's going to stay the same with testing, except fighters aren't going to be getting woken up in the middle of the night during a title fight or fighters who are cutting weight, say they're cutting 10 pounds of water weight their last day before a fight, aren't going to be forced to take a piss test immediately as they're cutting weight. Like they'll give them leniency where they can stay in the room with them for an hour or two, and let the fighter take it after, like if there's going to be more leniency in that way, but like that won't affect like that won't affect the integrity of the sport, like that little stuff. And then last thing I'll speak on it is he also said like the John Jones situation with the picograms, how he had so little amount of whatever in his system that flagged him and ended up being a no contest with Daniel Cormier. There's going to be more leniency with that stuff. Like with stuff you take, whether like if even if it's not steroids, like whatever substances that are banned, a lot of times that can stay in your system for years and years. So you can be clean and you can test for a small amount of picograms of something, and you get a year or two suspension. So pretty much, he said there will be more leniency with that. They'll look at it as on a case to case basis, how much you have, whatever, and there won't be as harsh a punishment for something that small where they know you aren't actually on something at the moment. So that's pretty much all I'll say about it because I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the details or whatever, but from what I heard from Connor Campbell, he was pissed, and so is Jeff Novitzky. Jeff Novitzky was like almost like crying how emotional he was about the whole situation, and like thinking like people thought the integrity of the sport was getting out the window. So that isn't going to be happening. Like the UFC will still have a gold standard in drug testing. There's just going to be more leniency on certain aspects of the stuff I just stated. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and another like I said, they were trying to use Connor as like this scapegoat in a
Exactly.
way, and that was
That
just
that was
you
like the
know
main Hunter thing. Like he said, Connor is such a big name and brings so much eyes to the sport that they used him as a scapegoat. If you think about USADA, they handle a lot of Olympic level athletes that people don't even really know about, like that they don't have the same name that Connor does. So the fact that they could use Connor as a little scapegoat to make it look like the UFC, that's the reason the UFC was not renewing the contract is completely bullshit from what Hunter said. He said this was happening for months in advance and that Travis literally just had like a mental breakdown and couldn't handle the fact that he said they're going to move a different direction and they don't need them. Like they have all the private contractors they need, scientists they need to run a gold standard program, and they don't need USADA. So good for them, man.
yeah, and I think that the vast majority of the fighters, they've almost voiced their opinions on X and everything, and it sounds like we know that a lot of fighters didn't like USADA, especially with the fact that they
Yeah,
would show up at their hotel rooms and this and
100%.
that, and they'd test them in the most inopportune times, middle of the night. They wouldn't take no. You can't say no. You got
Yeah.
once they knock on your
If,
door, you got to take the piss test.
yeah,
You got to
if you
wake up, you got
say
to do it.
if you say no, you're guaranteed at least a year or two suspension. So yeah, like it was just the way they were going about things. The UFC wasn't happy about it for years. They had a contract with them. The contract is still going on until I forget when he said January, maybe end of January or whatever. But yeah, after that we'll be completely split ways. And yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes
Yeah,
for
it'll be
sure.
interesting to see how that plays out. One last thing that I think we should recap is the DAZN or the DAZN, or as our good friend Line Time Buddy would say, DAZN
Yeah.
event. It went about as you'd think. Starting off with I guess real quick, I just want to throw out the Salt Poppy and Slim. That was the first card fight on the main
Yeah.
card. I can't lie, that might have been the most competitive, real looking fight of the main card,
Yeah.
and that's bad.
Dude,
Um,
I agree 100. And I was just gonna say real quick before you recap that one, because I actually didn't completely watch that one. I saw some highlights. I was watching before because I didn't really know when the main card was happening or whatever. And the one fight I saw it was like Dean the Great versus like Sharky Whales, just like two ridiculous names. But dude, like it was a very fun and competitive fight. Like, and when you see these, like I get it. Like it's not like real boxing. Like these guys are content creators, YouTubers, video game fucking players, whatever they do. But like it's honestly pretty enjoyable and entertaining watching these fights because there is less defense and like they do really go for it. And that fight I did watch, it was pretty competitive, man. For two YouTubers or whatever they do, man, they looked very solid. Like I thought that fight was pretty good, and I think that was like the last fight on the prelims. But Yeah, I was just surprised. Like I enjoyed it more than I thought. But yeah, you can talk about that salt poppy or slim poppy one in a little bit.
The only thing I really wanted to say is what I said. I think that that was the most competitive,
Yeah,
real looking fight, and trying to collect my thoughts and think of what I really want to say here. And what I would like to say is that this isn't real fighting, and we
no,
should stop holding it to that standard. I saw so much stuff on social media of people saying all the hype for this and that. And here's the thing: if you truly expected to go in and watch a boxing match against Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul, where they
Paul,
were
yeah,
going to have technical boxing, that's on you.
yeah,
This is
they
closer
look
to
horrible.
WWE than it is real boxing
Boxing, yeah,
or real combat sports. This is entertainment. It's
yes,
exactly
for
what it is.
sure.
They want you to be entertained, and they're really good at being entertainers because that's what they are. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
in Logan Paul's post-fight interview, he called out Rey Mysterio. Last time I checked, Rey Mysterio is a fake wrestler. He
Yeah,
called him
yeah,
out for fake wrestling. So I don't know what people really had thought. I saw a bunch of people saying that Dylan Dennis is this Twitter troll. Yeah, he is. You're right.
yeah.
So
He is, yeah.
obviously he's gonna shoot takedowns in a boxing match. He's gonna try
Yeah.
to fight the security. What else did we expect? I
Yeah, I
mean, it's a
mean,
6 round fight.
what it is, it's a spectacle, man. Like, or I should say Dylan. Dylan sold the fight very well. He made people believe that he could box, and even me, man. Like, I thought he would look better. Like, I thought that he might have just been trolling with the videos he put out of looking so atrocious. I was wrong. He is very bad. He is a horrible boxer. But so is Logan Paul. Like that fight was bad on both ends, like either way. But I will say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the spectacle of, but because we knew what we were watching, we knew what we were getting into. We knew we weren't going to see great boxing. But at the same time, man, he sold the fight very well. Um, yeah, I mean, it's Misfits boxing. One thing I will say is it does seem like they are trying to get some real fighters in there. Like Darren Till apparently is pretty close to signing a contract with them. And yes, he's an MMA fighter. He's not a real boxer. Like, but at the same time, he is a very solid stand-up fighter, whether it's MMA or boxing. Like, he's not Dylan Dennis, where he's a jiu-jitsu world champion that has one MMA fight against an Uber Eats driver. You know, he's literally fought the best fighters in the world. Like, he's fought Stephen Thompson, he's fought Tyron Woodley. Like, he's a very solid stand-up fighter. So I mean, hey, hats off to them at least trying to make it more credible by getting in some retired UFC fighter, or not retired, but like, UFC fighters that aren't in aren't in the UFC anymore, like a Darren Till that is a solid, respectable striker. So that's the last thing I'll say on that, at least.
Yeah, and it's just from a credibility standpoint, we saw in the post fight, Jake Paul was calling out Tommy Fury and that
Jeez.
kind of, and it's like, and he's calling out, we're real boxers over here. You're not. I mean, if you're a real boxer, fight boxers. I get it. It's
Yeah.
fun to watch these old MMA guys go in there and fight, but they're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
boxers. They're
so what
not.
the Tommy Fury fight, KSI, people were
Yeah.
calling robbery. I mean, dude, like that fight was just so unenjoyable to watch because of like what it was. Like, dude, you could tell the refs were like, dude, even the refs they get, dude. Like, I don't even know if these guys are real refs. Like, dude, KSI was literally just clinching him every second he would get. And if anyone knows what boxing is, when you clinch, the ref gets in the middle of you guys and breaks it up as quick as possible. He literally wasn't even doing that. He would literally let it happen. And Tommy Fury got a point taken away because he was punching him in the back of the head. Like, that was completely valid. Like, he was punching him in the back of the head in those clenches, but at the same time, the ref needs to get in there and make that not a thing where KSI can literally grab him. Like, he literally would just like it would be like 20 to 30 seconds. And then he would just like kind of tap them both, be like, all right, break it up. Like, that's not what a referee does in a boxing fight. Like, you cannot clinch like that over and over again. But yeah, people were calling robbery. I don't know, man. It was like what 3 rounds to 3 rounds, and then people KSI got a point. Tommy Fury got a point deduction, so people were like he should have won. But I mean, no one won. The fans didn't win. Neither fighter won. It was just embarrassing, to be honest. And you could tell Tommy Fury's dad was like pissed off. He was like, "Yeah, he looked like shit." Like he literally was just like so pissed about the whole like fight and how Tommy looked and whatever. But yeah, Tommy Fury is not even a real boxer. He's like a
Yeah,
He's like a Love Island. Like
yeah.
that's how he got famous. He's a good looking dude. I don't get it.
And
It's the
one
Fury
last
last
just one last thought on it in general. It's, I think that a really bad thing is when your main draws and the main fighters are also the main sponsors and the ones paying for everything.
Yes, exactly,
Because then you
bro.
got the commentators, I wonder who's paying them. The judges, I wonder who's paying them. The ref, wonder who's paying. It's like
Yeah.
if Dana White were to fight a chicken and cheese quesadilla and he tries to gain credibility from it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I
I
mean, he pays all these people, man. He can do that, but like then you're asking people, the audience to like buy into this. I'm personally not going to. Obviously, there are people that do, but
Yeah.
like I said, it's closer to WWE, whereas like when you guys, the person who's co-line or co-heading the main event and the co-main event, when those
Yeah.
are the two people paying for everything.
Yeah, I mean, the
I mean,
announcers were all obviously on the Prime, payroll, dude. Like,
yeah,
they were literally it sounded more like WWE announcers than
yeah,
actual or commentators. It sounded like that. Like, it was just I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. Like, me and you would have done a way better job commentating that shit show of a card than those guys did, but, yeah, I mean, it was entertaining for what it was because we knew what we were getting into, but I agree 100%.
yeah. I mean, they try to show you what it is at face value. Some people take it for more, and some people don't. So,
Yeah.
I think that's gonna do it for the episode in general. It was a fun weekend of combat sports, a fun weekend of whatever you want to call that. This weekend though, this is where the fun really begins. I think that this has potential to be one of the best UFC cards that we've seen in a very long time, and this starts a stretch of pay-per-views for the UFC that it's
Yeah.
real good. We get Stipe and John Jones next. We get Leon and Colby. We're in for it. We're in for a fun ride here in these next couple of weeks. So strap in. Make sure to listen to us. We're gonna recap. We're gonna go over all these cards coming up. Um, yeah, stay tuned to the Line Time Sports UFC talk, my friends.
Yep, hopefully we are 7-2 after this weekend. Keep,
Yep.
trucking along. Alright,
Yep.
brother. I will see you next one.
Yep. It was a pleasure as always.